Right, ready to go.
Thank you very much. This is John Kruger, President of the Estes Valley Library District, and it is April the 7th, 6:30 p.m. This is our monthly study session, and it will be focused on our report with regard to collections that Kathleen Case will be sharing with us. We have a full board present, as well as Sarah Walsh, and of course, Kathleen, and Johanna Stinsland is recording for us. I do have one item that I will bring up first. Our May 5th study session is scheduled to be a review of library standards. I have not heard from Claudine that she has been able to get someone from the state library to join us to do that. But regardless, I am of the opinion, since it will be Cinco de Mayo, that we might postpone that topic and just cancel that study session. Any thoughts from anyone with regard to that? Lynn and Claudine and I will firm that up at our next government affairs, but anyone have any objections?
No.
No.
Okay. All right. I don't hear any, so I will make that recommendation at our government affairs meeting with Claudine next week. And if you're not aware, Claudine is away to Winter Park. She is on a committee having been asked to join the board of the Rocky Mountain Conservancy. And so she's on an education committee, and they're meeting to work on plans for upcoming education type events for that organization. And I told her not to bother to try to zoom in from there. She has other business to take care of tonight, and promised her that we would be kind to Kathleen Case.
Thank you.
So with that, I will turn it over to you, Kathleen. I think you have 3 pages of report that came to us. I don't know if you have anything additional to share tonight. Okay.
I do.
All right.
This year, I have a slideshow that I've prepared that includes a bit of the spreadsheets that I forwarded on to you. I thought you might want to see a little more detail than what I'm going to show in the slides. So if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to ask, of course. And we will get started. Joanna is going to forward the slides for me as we go along. So Joanna, can you forward along to the first slide, please, the next slide. Thank you. Well, welcome to the study session where I report to you on how I spent the acquisitions budget in the previous year. So we're going to focus on 2021. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty. So as I said before, if you have questions, let me know. This is my 22nd year working as the acquisitions librarian, and it's changed quite a bit since I first started. I was thinking earlier today about how when I used to place orders, I would literally call the vendors on the telephone and read to them the 10-digit ISBNs of the items that we wanted to order. And I was going to look to see what the budget was at that time, but I didn't get around to that before this meeting. So now I barely have to talk to any other human beings when I spend the acquisitions budget. Joanna, can you forward to the next slide? So you'll see, oh, actually, sorry, I need to move my little box around. You'll see our goal for 2022 is to exceed the spending that we did in 2019. So you'll see in 2021, we definitely did not hit that mark. And you'll see that we ended up actually deleting more than we added in 2021, which is not our goal. Our goal is typically to add a bit more than what we deaccession. And the purpose of deaccessioning in the first place is to make space for the new materials that we're going to add in that budget year. We started off the year strong with our deaccessioning project. It was our first full year working with the new ILS. So there were some challenges at the very beginning with ordering, which I'll go into a little bit later. And those challenges were specific to the adult collection. You'll see Melanie and the teen librarian Bree, they did a great job last year in spending their budget and exceeding the acquisitions, the materials added from even 2019. So they did a great job with those regards. And this year we are already on target to outspend definitely 2021 and hopefully 2019.
Kathleen,
Yes.
on that slide.
Yes.
So almost 400 more books or materials.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, this is all books here, right? Physical books?
The physical, these are all the physical.
So for youth and teens, 400 more, but spent $15,000 less. Are books cheaper?
Books are definitely not cheaper, but the youth and teen books are less expensive for sure. The average price of a kit of a J Easy book.
Well, I'm just kind of curious. 39,000 spent in 2019 for 865, and they did very well. Otherwise, is that some of that added associated with something else like Dolly Parton or any of that?
This is all the acquisitions budget. I think what it depends on is how many hardcover books versus paperback books are added and the price difference there. And it just fluctuates year to year on what the materials might be coming in as, whether they're paperback or hardcover or library bound. So that also plays into it. And then the processing costs different for both the hardcover and the paperback. So
thank you.
I could look into that and see exactly what that is. I could work with Cindy.
Fine. Okay. No, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Does that include your processing costs?
It includes processing, yes. Which I want to say it's $10,000 in book processing for adult, and it's a little less than that for the youth services department.
Okay.
Joanna, do you want to forward to the next slide? So this is the digital collections, and this is where so the cloud library is a collection that I curate. So I order those materials. I add those weekly. The Overdrive collection and the Hoopla collection, they're curated by those other vendors. So I can add materials to the Overdrive collection, but I don't often need to add that many because they have so much to begin with, and they often have what the patrons are looking for. So you'll see that we added 188,463 items, and we 756 plus expired. And that depends on, John, you've heard this before, the licensing with the different publishing houses. So one publishing house, the books expire after 52 checkouts, and the books might cost $30. Random House, specifically, those books are very expensive. They cost $60 each. They don't ever expire. HarperCollins, I think it is, those books are in the $20 price range, and they typically expire after a year. But now they've added like another license where you can get a 2-year license where it's a little bit more expensive. So those licenses they expire, I don't want to say willy-nilly because there are dates to them, but it's impossible to keep track of. So I just run the reports to see how many were added and how many expired. And I think because we've been adding so much, so many more have also been expiring at the same time. So that's why so many more have expired in 2021.
So Kathleen, when I look at the added, does
Mhm.
that include Hoopla and
Mhm.
I think Overdrive, Libby, whatever?
It includes all of them. So
Okay,
it includes Hoopla, Libby, and the Cloud Library.
okay,
And
But
that,
the total number of items that we have is close to 1 million that are available to the patrons between all three of those vendors.
wow.
And- go ahead, Kay, sorry.
And if you said one of the publishing houses after 52 checkouts,
Mhm.
it expires.
Mhm.
When you have an ebook, is there a hard copy also?
Not always, which is a very good question because we're trying to figure out, is it worth it for us to advertise? Like, for example, Cindy Standifer she does all of our displays. She's in charge of, she kind of manages the way the collection looks. And we're talking about whether or not when she does a gardening display, should we make covers of books that we only have in the digital collection? So people might think, oh, well, okay, so they have all these books that I can take out right now, but I can go home, or if they have their phone or their device with them, they could check this other organic gardening book out of Libby. And so we don't always have the same titles. The most popular titles, I would say we do have
Okay.
in both digital and in physical. And then, like, for example, when we do One Book, One Valley, we'll make sure we definitely have them all available, physical, digital audiobook, and then we'll have it on book on CD. We'll have it in all the formats so that it's accessible to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So you brought up the one book. What do we do with all those?
I can kind of speak to that right now. So not all of the books, the majority of the books have been returned. And I know that Eric has been working on, I've deaccessioned them, so they're not in the system anymore. And he's working on, there's a way that he's getting them to the participants in like a little goodie bag. So I think he's getting ready to let those people know that it's time to come pick those books up. So he's passing them out to people who are interested in having them, along with the book plate that the author had signed. I guess they had arranged for that in advance. So you might be hearing about that some more.
Last year we made souvenir copies available, and you could reserve them on the website. And they did have a signed book plate. And it was emailed to anyone who participated in a One Book, One Valley event. And you could say, if you'd like one of these, just reserve one here, and then you can pick it up at the library. I believe they're following that same process this year, making them available as we kind of call them a keepsake copy.
Okay, thank you for
And
that.
John, from previous years, we do sell a lot of the One Book, One Valley books at Cliffhanger. We go through a lot of copies of The Big Burn.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you all.
Lynn, did you have a question?
You're muted.
That 56,000, that includes the Hoopla, all the sources, the things that you put into the iCloud, and
Yes,
that's all of them.
that's all of it.
Offhand, do you have a sense of what that mix is? I mean, how much is what you're doing versus what we're subscribing to? Don't worry about it if you don't.
No, I could say, I want to say it's probably, I'm going to say that I spend between 15 and 20 on curating our own Cloud Library collection. And the rest of it goes to the other collections.
And what you're curating, that's where you've got you talk about the publishers. Random House. Okay.
And then I checklist, like we can have, if the patron has turned on the entire collection, there's a way that they can recommend titles so that each week before I place my order, I check 2 reports. I check to see how many holds are on the titles that we have. For example, last week, Jacqueline Winspear's book was published, A Sunlit Weapon, and I had already ordered 1 copy, but over the course of the week, there were 9 people on hold. So I added a second copy, and then I checked to see what books people have recommended. So we have some patrons who go in and they'll recommend books that they know that they want to read, like David Baldacci or Daniel Silva, like those popular authors. So then when I order those items, they automatically receive an email to say this item has been added to the collection and it's ready for you to check out. So there are ways that people can make requests directly through the app. And then I also still get the request through the We'll Get It For You feature on our website, where they can choose digital or physical.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Go ahead.
Okay. Do
I'm
you have any
just-
more questions about digital?
Oh,
Sorry.
Beth does.
Yeah, Beth.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm just recognizing how complex all these digital collections are. And this might be difficult to answer or not, but I'm curious, because you have control over one, like absolute, and then you have these other sources. Are there duplicates that show up between the Cloud Library, Hoopla, and Overdrive or Libby?
They're definite duplicates.
Mhm.
And they
And the
mostly show up.
way-
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The
They mostly
duplicates
show
show
up.
up between Libby. We're going to try to call it Libby because the Overdrive app is going away at the end of this year. So we're trying to focus on Libby. So I'm going to I'll refer to it as that. It's supposed to be a seamless process, and we'll get all the information out to the patrons so that it shouldn't be too difficult for them. But yes, between Libby and the Cloud Library, because the Cloud Library is what we started with, and it seems it's an easier interface for patrons to use, or at least it was when it first started. Those are the titles that I add, but they're mostly like the New York Times bestsellers, and they're books that are popular with the patrons. They're almost always on Libby also. And it's just kind of the difference between one interface and the other and what the patrons prefer. And I do wonder if someday we're gonna need to make that decision. Like, are we just gonna go with one of the formats and just do away with the other, just to make it easier for everyone? That conversation will definitely be coming down the pike at some point. But yes, there are definite duplications.
I'm just thinking about how complex it is in terms of the way they all function differently.
Yeah.
And have changed significantly too, even over the time that
Right.
they've been around. I did wonder, I think I know the answer to this, but if really the way to know that there are duplicates is to be using the card catalog. But once you get into and search through the search engines that are in those formats, you don't really get any kind of cross-reference of, oh, it could be over in the Cloud Library if it's checked out in Libby or anything like that. Is that true?
That's true. Like you will see, let me know if I answer this correctly. You'll see that there are 4 copies of Plain Song. One is here in the library, physical. Then there's the Overdrive copy. And then there's the Libby copy. And then there's the Cloud Library copy. And if you go to the Cloud Library copy and it's checked out, it's not going to tell you that the Libby copy is checked out. You'll have to go back to the catalog and see. You'll go into Libby and see if it's available there then. So it's kind of like you have to go in each place and see how available it is.
That is an important difference this year. When did we turn on ERC? Do you know, Kathleen?
It was definitely in 2021. I would say last summer, maybe earlier.
So last summer we did turn on ERC, so the catalog connector that lets us see all of our collections in the catalog, which does give us the ability to say, yeah, I want the big burn. And you can see copy in Cloud Library, checked out. Copy in Libby, available. Which I hope will make it easier for people to say, I've always loved the Cloud Library interface, but since Libby has this book, I'm willing to make the switch. So I'm hoping when I first started teaching people about digital collections, I remember many power users asking, How do I see all the Jacqueline Wins peers on all 3 platforms? I can make 3 logins. And the answer used to be, yes, you have to search in these 3 siloed collections. And with Catalog Connector, that's no longer true. So as we market digital collections, we're encouraging people more to start at the catalog. So catalog.svalleylibrary.org. Hoopla, because it has so many items, would dwarf the physical collection if we left it enabled by default. So Hoopla is actually filtered out of our catalog view by default. And we do notice that Hoopla is a bit of a breed unto itself. So Hoopla users are still searching mostly for Hoopla materials in the app. And then for Libby and Cloud Library users, the best place to start is the catalog, because that's where you can start cross-referencing. Okay, who's got the copy of the big book?
Mm.
So that's an important change that rolled out mid last year, and it's a bit subtle, but I think patrons are discovering it without needing much help.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions about the digital collections?
That is so right, that the complexity of digital collections is constant and ever shifting. And when we talk to patrons about it, we start to get into the nitty gritty, especially with power users. Hoopla, of course, follows the model like Netflix, where once you have it, you have it. Of course, 3 people can read a digital book at the same time, right? Or of course, 3 people can watch. Netflix doesn't make you line up, right, for a movie. That's how Hoopla works. But the other 2 services work as if the books were physical, and they're checked out to one person. And right, some of the publishers actually enforce that they wear out as if they were physical paper books. And that can be, people go, wow, is that really how digital books work? They wear out when people read them too much. I'm like, yeah, if that's what Random House wants to do, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So conversation.
Do we currently have any publishers who are still not doing ebooks?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm sure there are small publishers that are not.
Oh,
A lot of self-published items, of course, are well, I shouldn't say of course. A lot of self-published books are often not in ebook format, or they're not available. They might be available in like an odd ebook format, but it's never through one of our vendors. But I do think that a lot of people are going in that direction. And sometimes there are books that are only published on Amazon, available on Kindle through their format, but they're not available in print version. And I do run into a few of those a year where patrons are really, they are really interested in a specific title, but the only way you can get it is to actually go onto Amazon and order it yourself personally.
Right.
So there's no way for us to satisfy those patrons.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Joanna, should we go to the next slide? Just want to talk briefly about the supply chain issues that we faced last year. Let's see. So in March, we started out with, March is when we started receiving new materials. Typically we start in January, but I was learning the new ILS system where it's EDI, it's the electronic data interchange, where I order from the vendors and then I load the records directly into the ILS, and the ILS and the vendor talk back and forth to each other. So there were the 3 of us, the vendor, myself, and the ILS, and we're trying to get all of the orders ready to go. So by March, we started receiving the materials that I had ordered in January. So that was a little bit of a problem as far as spending the budget and getting it all spent in 1 year. And then I received some emails from Baker and Taylor saying that they were suffering from some staffing challenges, with covering, with cataloging, with boxing the materials up, with shipping. We had a lot of books are published, big titles are released on Tuesdays. I typically try to order the materials at least a month in advance so we have them on that day. So when the new John Grisham book is supposed to be released on Tuesday and it's talked about the previous weekend on the news channels and the radio, that when the patrons come in, they're going to find it on the shelf. Well, that didn't happen frequently because the books were back ordered and they were not arriving until 2 weeks after those dates. And then there were transportation issues, getting the material shipped. There were paper shortages. The pulp mills were selling, instead of selling the pulp for paper, they were selling it to corrugated cardboard companies. And so that they would have cardboard boxes to keep up with e-commerce since the pandemic. So that increased paper prices. And I was just reading last week that they're anticipating that the paper prices will have increased 16%, and they don't see that coming down until late in 2023. So we might continue to see those issues. I know I checked this morning, and we, at this time, I mean, we've been ordering throughout the year, and we, at this moment, we still have 300 items on back order. So we're still waiting for those items, and they're working on them. And Baker and Taylor's really great in keeping me in the loop and letting me know that they're having issues. And if there's something that I need right away for a specific program, I can get them those titles, and they'll try to get those to us as quickly as possible so they can kind of like jump the line and send those to us. Joanna, can you advance the slide? So we talked about the ILS, and it definitely wasn't my best year as far as acquisitions. I have it down now, and it seems to be working great. And as long as those back orders start coming in, we shouldn't have any problems exceeding the spending of 2019, which is definitely our goal. We're on track for that. Let's see. We are anticipating some higher costs with the paper pricing going up. And the one thing that we're excited about, or I'm excited about, is we have a lot of new staff. Specifically, the Youth Services Department, Melanie and Bree are working great together, and Bree has some good ideas for how to get the teens into the library. We have a new manga display that's going to be coming out on May 4th. So she's waiting to release all of those titles. They've been coming in bit by bit, and we hope to have that display full by her release date of May 4th. And there are more people coming into the library to use the makerspace and up on the second floor. So we're hoping that, that will, of course, have people stop and look at the DVDs and the new book collection, which is always popular. And we'll see the circ numbers keep rising. Please advance the slide, Joanna. I've been working with Cindy Stanifer, has joined the technical services team, and we work together. Cindy is, like I said earlier, she's in charge of collection management and how things are displayed, and she does an excellent job. We have what is called a trail map that she looks at every month. She looks at it before the next month, of course, so she knows what to anticipate, and then she'll let me know. We have the month of the young child is April. Is there anything specific that we could add that's new to the collection that she would want to put on a display? Downstairs, she has, I think, 4 displays each month that she's constantly adding to and getting ideas of what new items to put on the display. We work together, Cindy and I work together on the We'll Get It For You page on the website where patrons can submit materials for requests that we purchase for our collection or through interlibrary loan. So oftentimes Cindy will have a few requests for the same title, and she'll say, like, I've had 3 different people request this through interlibrary loan because we don't have it. Maybe you'd consider ordering it for the collection. And oftentimes the answer to that is yes, definitely. Sometimes I'll have requests for books that are older, that might be like book number 5 in a mystery series about cats and kitchens or whatever. And I'm probably not gonna order just the one book in the middle of the series, but I can go into Prospector and see that, those books are available all along the Front Range. and they're checked in. So I'll ask Cindy to do an interlibrary loan for those. And that works great. We are, last September, speaking about the digital collections, we joined what is called a Cloud Link, which is the Cloud Library. It's a consortium within the Cloud Library between Estes Valley Library, Pueblo County City Library, and Aspen Cat. And they offer, at the time we had about 5,800 items in our Cloud Library. And by joining that consortium, we now have 40,000 items to offer, and that includes audiobooks. So when we talk about the Cloud Library, and that was the first vendor that we worked with, and I would order the materials, we had to build the collection from nothing. So the audiobooks came out, and I thought, oh, it's such a great platform. It's so easy for the patrons to use, but the audiobooks are not inexpensive. So I'd always kind of thought, our patrons use Overdrive Libby, and they can access the audiobooks there. They can also access audiobooks through Hoopla. But when the invitation to join the Cloud Link came about, and it was very inexpensive, we went ahead and joined. And the good thing about it is that our patrons can see all of the materials that are available, all 40,000 items, and the other patrons in the consortium can see what we offer within that 40,000. But if our patrons if we have a hold list for something that's popular here, our patrons always get the first choice. So if it's something that we've purchased for our collection, our patron will get the first choice to check it out if they're on the hold list. And then patrons from the other libraries they are second to our patrons. So our patrons are served ahead of them, which I think is good considering we're a small library. We increased the Hoopla checkouts just last week from 5 to 8 per month, which we just heard this morning in the computer comments how happy one of our power users was with that decision. So we're happy with that, and we'll watch those circulations and see how that goes. Our circulations in the digital collections, remember during the pandemic, so many people, everyone was at home, and our digital collection circulations really went up a lot. I can say that they continue to increase. Last year, 2021, we circulated more than 30,000, just slightly over 30,000 items. And that is, it's not going up exponentially like it did at the beginning of the pandemic and like the first half of 2020, but it's still increasing monthly, and we're still adding quite a few users each month. So we hope to increase that throughout the year and into next year through different marketing campaigns. Joanna, can you fast forward the slide? Trends and investments. So these are some new things that we have in the DVD collection specifically. During 2020 and 2021, so many movies were released. If they were released at all, they often went straight to streaming. We're still seeing that in a lot of movies where they're released in the theater and then they go straight to streaming, and some of them are skipping the DVD option completely. So we're still adding DVDs, but there are some movies that patrons have requested that we just can't get for them, which is unfortunate because not everyone has the ability to stream, or they might not have the right devices at home in order to make that happen. So we're gonna introduce a couple new items to the DVD collection. The first is Great Courses, which you've probably heard of. The Rec Center offers, I think it's a weekly class that's great. That's the same as the Great Courses. And they have a wide variety of subjects, and we'll be adding those to the collection. So they're all packaged in one container, just like it's a lot bigger than a regular DVD case, but it has a book, like a guidebook, and then it has the DVDs that you can watch at the same time. And it's a wide variety of subjects from investing to estate planning, to wine. There's a wine course, there's a birding course. They have, we'll see what people are interested in. And then binge boxes it's a smaller case, so it will take up less space in the DVD collection, which is always a good thing. But the single case will have 5 or 6 movies that are on the same subject. So for example, we have one that's on Chicago, and it's a bunch of movies that were filmed in Chicago or about Chicago. We have one that's, all the Jack Ryan movies. We have one that's Tom Hanks. It's a bunch of Tom Hanks movies. So they're different. They're either specific actor, specific area, or specific subject. So we hope to get those out definitely by June 1st, of course. And then in teens, like I said, we have the manga display coming out in May. And Bree is talking about video games, adding video games to the teen collection to circulate. And then, of course, we have the Lucky Day collection, which will continue to build, and that remains popular with our patrons also.
Kathleen, may I ask a question about the great courses?
Yes.
I've used some of them and they are wonderful.
Yeah.
But they're also long.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last one I went through was 48 half-hour episodes.
Wow.
So, it's a big time commitment. Will
Yeah.
there be some adjustment to how long you check them out?
That is the biggest question around how we're going to circulate these. Do we let them go for 1 week, or do they need their own special code so that they can circulate for 3 weeks? I was going to check in with some other libraries to see how they circulate them and to see what works best with them, and then start there. I haven't yet done that yet.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think would work?
If you told me that I had 24 hours of watching and 1 week to do it in,
Yeah.
I don't believe I would check it out.
Right. That's
And I guess the binge boxes have a little bit of the same issue.
The binge boxes, I think they're made for that. Like if we have 5 movies in one case and it checks out for 1 week, we figure we're going to start with 1 week and see how it goes. We have a lot of patrons who come in and check out Game of Thrones, like the whole season 8, and they'll watch all of them in 1 week, which I think is amazing that someone has time, but
that much time.
People do. They have insomnia, or they're just at home, and maybe I'm not sure how it happens, but we haven't had many complaints about the fact that they check out the whole season in 1 week. And
interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm going to check to see how long other libraries circulate the great courses.
Thanks.
Yeah. Joanna, can you advance the slide? Do you have any other questions?
Anybody? Any comments? Yeah, Lynn?
Kathleen, I noticed in the material that you set out ahead of time that basically in the last 3 years, you spent $8 on music CDs.
Yes.
Is that just with streaming a category that's completely gone away? Does anyone check them out anymore?
They are not checked out. I'm going to have to check to see how many were checked out. I think the plan, Allison and I had discussed this earlier, was to enhance the classical music collection, because we have the classical music class with Daryl DeYoung here in the spring that is always so popular. So enhance the classical music collection, but think about deaccessioning the physical CDs completely, since they take up space and they aren't circulating, and we haven't had requests to add any new music. So to still offer those classical CDs, which aren't often found on I know that Hoopla has a classical collection, but maybe get some of the more popular classic CDs, compositions, and add those. But think about doing away with the popular materials.
What about the CDs for the tiny people? Do those circulate ever?
those circulate a little bit better, but no, I think they're kind of falling by the wayside. And they scratch
little
so
sad.
easily and people step on them and break them. It's a lot to keep up with them, to keep
Yeah.
them. We have a volunteer who works on cleaning them weekly.
Oh,
So
what a job.
I think CDs specifically as a medium, and I think we see this, do we not see this in audiobook CDs as well, Kathleen? Where audiobooks tremendously popular, huge cornerstone of our collection. But one of the first things to digitize, one of the easiest things to digitize, cars don't have CD players anymore.
Mine does.
It's not something your DVD, you still, a lot of people still check out DVDs. Really easy to keep a DVD player in your living room and just stash it in the corner, right? When they start taking the CD player out of the car, that puts a strong pressure on moving music to digital. So DVDs are still quite healthy, while their cousin, the CD, is really suffering from the switch to digital.
right.
And I do think that's the absence of a set. You want to listen to music on the go anywhere in your house while you're jogging, where you're still able to go to one central location to watch a DVD.
The thing that we find with the DVDs also is that not all DVD players are created equally. You could spend $100 on a DVD player, you spend $20 on a DVD player, and depending on which movie, wherever the DVD is coming from, sometimes it works better on the $20 DVD player than it does on the $100 DVD player. And we started putting those little slips in the DVDs and any of the CDs to say, did this work? And where did you find trouble? So we know like where to pinpoint, like how to clean it. If it's disc 5 in a 12 disc set, we'll just clean disc 5. So it's difficult when you get the same movies. Recently, there's the Shout movie, a Shout Factory, I think it is. There, for whatever reason, they don't work on one of our patrons' players, and every time they check it out, they return it and say, this doesn't work. But then I take it home and put it in my player, which is not a fancy player, and it works fine. And I don't know what that is. Like, I'm not technical enough to know what is that? Like, why can't they all work fine in everybody's player? But
I'd hate to see you do away with the books on CD, I guess, yet. I understand, but a lot of people I talk to still get them for road trips and listen to them. So,
yep, we do hear that.
We'll never lose the concept of an audiobook. We'll always have audiobooks in multiple formats. They're really inspiring audiobook stories about where people take them and where they listen to them. Travel, young moms who have to fold a ton of laundry, need their hands free, right, and their eyes free. One I've heard that I really, really liked is many people in Estes work cleaning houses, as you might imagine. And many people who are house cleaners say, oh yeah, I've heard every classic novel. I've heard every New York Times bestseller. So they can do 10. Some of our best Hoopla power users are house cleaners and janitors.
Okay. Great. Anyone have any other comments or questions for Kathleen or Allison? No?
I have a question.
Okay.
Is there anything specific that you would want to hear about next year?
Well, we didn't cover too much on circulation, right?
Right. That would be Linda.
Okay.
Sorry, that would be the patron services supervisor.
Patron services.
Yeah.
Keeps track of that.
But I can tell you, because I checked in with her before the meeting tonight, that circulation is up over 2021. She couldn't say how much it was over 2020 or 2019, but it's definitely increased from 2021. So that's good.
But what would you think of including both of you next year in the session?
I would say I'll check with Claudine and see what she thinks.
Yes, I understand. I will too.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was actually a question I had for you, it's a lot of columns, right? With a lot of numbers, but I did wonder, would circulation plus acquisitions feel, and deaccessioning feel like too much, or would it feel clarifying?
I think it
think
was
with
more clarifying.
summarizing like what Kathleen has done on this side, if we can do something similar on the circulation, this board could probably handle that. Okay.
We've got spreadsheet,
Okay.
got spreadsheet enthusiasts in the crowd.
You better believe it.
We love a good chart.
I like that.
That's what we like.
Okay. Well, I don't want to prolong if we don't have anything else. Any questions or comments? Thank you very much again, Kathleen, Allison. Appreciate your joining us also and your comments. And we will